If you look at all the skills that you've developed over the course of your life, there's probably a common thread that ties all those skills together. That's where we'd find your superpower. And I know you mentioned coaching a little bit, but with that framing, what do you think your actual superpower is in your business?
Yeah, I think being able to identify what people really want and then determining if we're able to get them there and then helping them to do that. And so some churchy word is discernment. It's not just a church word, but that's one you hear thrown around. Being able to really understand and find a solution. I'm able to creatively problem solve. I think one of the ways that my brain's wired different is to put solutions together from different places and form them together into a new solution. That's helpful. I'm able to really draw out from a lot of people what it is that they want and help them form a plan to get there. In a very short, trite way of saying it, I like to help winners win more.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. From the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer. The ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to the Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews. Today I have live on the line Casey Seed. Casey, you there?
I'm here. It's glad to be here with you today, Rich.
Awesome. Glad to have you here. I know you and I are in a mastermind together, so we see each other every week. But for our audience who doesn't know you, where are you calling in from? Where's home?
So I'm in Brenham, Texas, and people sometimes affiliate that with Bluebell Ice Cream, the world headquarters for Bluebell Ice Creams here. If you're in a part of the country that doesn't know what Bluebell is, you should try it next time you have access to it. It's amazing. It's actually halfway between Houston, Texas, and Austin, Texas. And
Nice.
so it's a quaint little town, and we love it because access to all the big towns, but also still has a small town feel.
Yeah, I actually have been to the Bluebell factory there.
There you I can see it from my front porch, actually.
So I've been right next to you and didn't know it. But
Didn't
yeah,
know it.
we were there maybe 3 years ago. We went and we toured the whole facility and got Bluebell ice cream fresh out of the factory things, which to this day, Bluebell is the second best ice cream I've ever had. The first best ice cream is actually, I like Rite Aid or Thrifty's ice cream in Southern California. That's my favorite.
Oh, really? I'll have to try it next time.
Yeah, that's my favorite stuff. So what I want to do before we get too far in the interview, I always like to do a brief introduction so my audience gets to know who you are, and then we'll just dive into your story. So Casey Cease is an accomplished entrepreneur and leadership coach with over 20 years of expertise in guiding business owners and leaders across nonprofit and the for-profit sectors. As the visionary behind Casey Cease & Co., he specializes in helping clients achieve strategic growth, effective marketing, and publishing success. Casey's background includes founding Lucid Books and Planify Agency with a BA in psychology and an MDiv. His coaching and consultative approach is rooted in deep understanding and strategy. Married with 2 daughters, Casey's committed to transforming lives professionally and personally. And he's also the host of The Casey Seat Show, which you can find on Apple Podcasts. So with that introduction, Casey, what I want to do is have you start off with this simple question. What are you known for today? What's your business like? Who do you serve? What do you do for them?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking that. I am joyfully unemployed to my friends because in my tax structure, everyone identifies you by where you get your W-2. Because I own so many businesses, my wife and I have a limited partnership. And so basically my daughter's always like, what are your jobs? And I say, I have one job is to oversee my interests, but I'm known for book publishing. I launched Lucid Books, which is a partnership book publishing company back in 2006. And since that date, we've published over 1,000 titles worldwide. We help authors write, publish, and promote their books. And we love helping people put out books that people love to read and share with others. We have a deep-rooted base in Christian nonfiction is where we started, but have branched out into business solutions as well as children's books. The business books are a lot of fun because a lot of times business owners are extremely busy. And so we've come up with creative ways to help them capture the content and create it into books that not only people enjoy reading, but also help them grow their brand and their business. Planify Agency is a marketing business growth consulting agency. And so we combined all together my interests with the creativity, the content production, communication in various ways. And then Casey Cease & Co. is a recent more overflow of that, where I've begun doing more and more coaching and consulting, starting some new group masterminds, coaching environments for people. And so as I've grown a lot in business and in my background, I was also a lead pastor for almost 10 years at a church plant. And I still serve as a lay elder, or basically means non-paid pastor at the church we attend now, and handle that there. And so my wife, Steph, she's always like, just tell people you're an entrepreneur. And if they want to know more, let them ask, because it confuses people. But I tell people I'm a head coach, whether I'm coaching my teams, whether I'm coaching my coaching clients. My core unique giftings is really around coaching and really drawing out the best in people and helping them focus on the things that are most important, and doing that and curating that through marketing and publishing and coaching. It's just a joy to leverage those skill sets that I have.
Awesome. So you are the chief bottle washer, essentially.
That's absolutely it. And I can wash a mean bottle, so I can get after it.
Like, always my joke when people say, "What do you do?" I tell them I'm the chief bottle washer, and which I always thought was a kind of a funny way to think about when you're the head of either one company or even multiple companies. You just wear so many hats that sometimes you are literally the chief bottle washer. And
Absolutely. I mean, and that's, if you can't afford to hire someone to wash the bottles and the bottles need to be washed, you're washing the bottle. We can laugh and joke about it. And sometimes you enjoy washing the bottle. That's why I tell my coaching clients is, hey, you don't have to hire someone to do all the things, but the goal in owning a company is to do your best things. And I like ad buying for my marketing agency, but I'm not the only ad buyer. What's nice is I have the ability to step in and help and advise and do it sometimes if I want to, but I also have the freedom to be away from it and trust that it's getting done as well, if not better, than the way I do it. And so that's one of the key things I've found over the years, because my identity isn't completely wrapped up in what I do. While it's important for people to understand, as an entrepreneur, I start things and break things, and I hopefully make things better.
Yeah, awesome. I knew you were the head of Lucid Books. We've talked about that in our mastermind, but I didn't know you guys did children's books. And knowing that now, I'm like, my wife needs you. We've got about 15 manuscript books that she's finished. We just need illustration and publishing.
We have amazing illustrators. Two of our top illustrators are booked out for another 3 or 4 months. And that's with repeat authors coming back. And what's interesting with children's books, like there's not a high profit margin in children's books, but having such meaningful stories and the ability to help and connect with people, we found it really helpful, especially with causes. There's a book that we released several years ago, Love You From Right Here. It's basically a book, memory keepsake for foster children, that our friend Jamie Sandifer published with us. And it's great because different foster families, a child can keep it and add pictures, and as they develop, to have some rooted memory in their past. But we love doing purpose books. We love doing books that just are simple moral of the story. And we have several series books where people have developed characters. What's fun is we have one guy, he's a dad, and he created these characters in bedtime stories with his kids, and he's now turned them into a whole series of books. And so it's a lot of fun. And really, with publishing for us, we don't do it just to make money. We want to do it excellently and help people. But really for us, it's getting behind people's passion and helping put the pieces together to help them really see their passion come to life. And we have an amazing team at the publishing company. People are like, Casey, how do you read that many manuscripts? I don't. I have readers that do that, and I review certain elements when they need me to come in. But we have such an amazing team at the publishing company that it's a lot of fun.
My wife had a series called Little Monsters, or Little Monster, and it's a little purple creature. And it's like, don't eat the book, and don't eat the sand, and don't eat whatever. Like each book is a different thing that, like, if you've ever had toddlers, they're sticking everything in their mouth.
Yeah.
And like, don't eat the book. You can read the book and you can turn the pages and you can look at the pictures, but you don't eat the book. And it's the whole common rhyming scheme through the whole series of books. I'm really excited about eventually getting that one published for her. So what I want to start with in the actual podcast here is your origin story, right? Every good comic book hero has an origin story. It's the thing that made them into the hero they are today. And we want to hear that story. Were you born a hero, or were you bit by a radioactive spider that made you want to get into this entrepreneurship world and start several businesses? Or did you start in a job and eventually become an entrepreneur? Basically, where did you come from?
Yeah. So I appreciate asking that. So my background's interesting. I was that kid in first grade that was big for my size, but I was very sensitive. And so I cried for my mommy when I was 6 years old, and super quiet and shy. And people who know me now are like, there's no way, because I'm loud and not shy most of the time, but soft-spoken, and unless I was with my family or some friends, but usually pretty shy. That wasn't giving off the leader entrepreneur vibe early on. And it turns out by the time third grade, I was in counseling because I struggled with anxiety and depression. And it turns out when I was 22 years old that I figured out through some assessment that I'm ADHD and dyslexic. I had a high enough IQ to wing it most of the time in school, but it was highly stressed environment. And I was always battling, like, I feel stupid, but I know I'm not stupid kind of tension. When I was 13 years old, I went to my dad. I had this great idea. I said, Dad, I'm going to start a business. I want to start a DJ company. And I want to be a DJ on the DJ parties. And my dad was like, I thought he was going to be like, yeah, no, or hey, take the home stereo, see what happens. He's like, okay, what do you need? And that was a gift to me at the time. Mom and dad were like, he really seems like he thinks he's going to do this, so let's figure it out. And so he bought me two 15-inch speakers and an amplifier and a mixer, and let me use his tape deck and a CD player. So I was mixing between a CD player and a tape deck when I first started in the early 90s. And I just started DJing for free at first. And people were like, hey, you're actually pretty good at this. And then I ended up doing selling. I mean, I remember as a freshman in high school, I was going to junior highs or middle schools and selling $250 night dances. I was cheaper than the competitors because I was a kid. And I gave 100% money back guarantee before I knew that was the right thing to do. And
Nah.
so it was like a no brainer. And I'm like, I know what your kid's like. It's going to be amazing. If there's any problems whatsoever, I'll give you your money back. And by the end of my freshman year of high school, I had 2 rigs running. I bought another guy's rig. And problem is my peers didn't have the same work ethic. Like one of the times I was working with a crew and half the guys were down dancing with the 8th grade girls because they were in 9th grade. And so they were like hitting on the girls' dance. So it's kind of chaotic. And looking back, I was like, that's insane. But it really ruined me when I'm making $300, $250, $300 a couple nights a month during the school year and occasionally in the summer to going to work as a lifeguard making $4.25, bored out of my mind, sitting on a stand. Another pivotal thing happened when I was 17, just turned 17. And sadly, I was in a bad car accident. It was my fault. I'd been drinking and I had a friend run out in front of my car and I accidentally killed him. And it was a tragic, horrible moment in my life where everything came crashing down around me. I wanted to end it all. And through all that, my parents were wise and they said, hey, we're not sure if you can handle it. The doctors were like, hey, when he gets out of the hospital, we recommend putting him someplace. And so they put me in a mental place, a mental hospital. I had grown up going to church some, but not a lot. And if you would ask me, I was culturally a Christian, but more just in case. And I was a heavy skeptic. But during my stay in the hospital, a pastor came and spoke with me. And then my friend's parents came to see me and they said, Casey, we want you to know that we're Christians and that we forgive you. And we don't want you to hurt yourself. And we know that John wouldn't want you to hurt yourself either. And so we really hope that you will do better and or get better and live a different life. And so over the course of that senior year, it was a very hard struggle. I started going to church. I tried being religious, doing right stuff for God. I wasn't very good at it, but I remember reading the Bible and all these good people that thought they had it all together. It seemed like the guy in the Bible, Jesus, was like, hey, you're missing it. And the people that were a train wreck like I was, he was like, hey, there is hope for you. There is forgiveness. There is acceptance in God's kingdom. And so at the age of 17, I placed my trust in Jesus. I graduated high school a few months later, went to court, pled no contest, a 4th-degree state jail felony of negligent homicide, had 5 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, had a breathalyzer in my car. And I started in college and I hated college, started back up my DJ company, was doing community service. And part of my community service, I asked the judge if I could speak. And he said, you can do some of your time speaking. And so I was on the front page of the Houston Chronicle and then ended up speaking at a bunch of free talks about my story, driver schools, rehab clinics, all these different places to teenagers. And so within a year, they did a follow-up story and I began getting national opportunities to travel and share my story. And so I started speaking. I started as a young believer, getting more involved in youth ministry at the church, helping with kids and teenagers, ended up being a youth minister for a while, finding out I'm ADHD and dyslexic. Met my wife my senior year after my crash, and we ended up getting married in 2001 while we were still in college. And so all this was coming together. It was wrestling with, I'm gifted with business stuff, but I also want to serve in the church. And so I opted to, once I finished my degree, I started my first nonprofit. It was called KCC's Outreach because I wanted to be like Billy Graham, but then I realized I didn't have the same giftings as Billy. And so we changed it to Transform Ministries. And I helped other people start nonprofits through that. And so by the time 2004 came around, I was traveling, making a living full time, running a nonprofit and speaking. And then in 2006, we had our first daughter, Braylon. My wife and I decided that it would be great, at least in the formative years, for her to stay home with our kids if possible. And so my friend Rod Brace, who's a mentor to me, came to me and said, hey, I had this idea for a publishing company. And remember, I'm dyslexic. I'm like, okay, good for you. And I think you should run it. I think you should do it. I said, what? He said, yeah, it's a concept called Lucid Books, seeing clearly, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, come up with a business plan and I'll fund it. And so I wrote a business plan and he funded me with the idea and $1,500 because his concept was he'd been involved in the church and leadership. And he said, I always want you to be able to afford to do ministry. And he said, with the economy up and down, with churches being churches, I want you to always be able to have that freedom to do whatever ministry you feel led to while also providing for your family. And so that's where Lucid Books came from. And so that's how I stepped into kind of my first grown-up next to the nonprofit that started, my next grown-up sphere. And so I've had the joy over the years, helping start many different nonprofits, helping them think through fundraising strategies, communication strategies, and building boards and reaching people. And then on the for-profit side, through the publishing, has opened up doors to other areas. And Planify Agency, if you want me to keep rambling on about Planify Agency, but it came about during the pandemic because I had to figure out marketing, digital marketing with my publishing company. And I realized a lot of my friends were behind the eight ball and didn't really need to do that much digital marketing until the pandemic came. And then they were forced to do digital marketing. And so instead of bunching that and confusing it in my publishing company, I started Planify Agency and began with digital ad buying, website design, SEO, email marketing, those kind of things. And it just grew from there. Fun story on the coaching thing. In 2001, when I was still at the first church I was serving, they did this huge personality profile. I don't even remember what it was called. But my thing came back and said, your number one gifting is coaching, which made me so mad because the only framework I had at the time at 22 years old was sports. Well, I played sports, but I don't really like sports. Don't say that in Texas, but I could care less most of the time. I have a cousin that's a professional baseball player. And so I like his stuff when he's playing, but I'm just not a sports guy. So I was really bummed. And they explained to me like, no, coaching's more than that. It's leadership. It's helping other people grow. It's all that. They said it's actually very good for ministry or leadership in business. And so it's fun looking back now over 20 years later, saying like, that really is my unique ability in all that I do, being able to coach. So overnight was not a success. People are like, how'd you get where you were? How did you start speaking? I was like, I was on probation for a felony. I would not recommend that. I would not recommend that trauma. Some principles we can take on starting a speaking ministry or speaking business is speak as much as you can. Don't worry about money up front. Just go refine it, get in front of the right people, refine your messaging and all that. And then the money will follow. So
Yeah, that's a crazy story. You've been all over the place, everything from, school. I really love the story about your dad helping you start the DJ business as a kid. Same kind of thing. My dad helped me start a business in high school at 13 years old, right? My freshman year of high school. Not nearly as good of an idea as you had because mine was on campus. I got my dad to give me a loan for $50 to buy all the big candies at the local big box store and then bring them to campus. And instead of having school books and schoolwork in my bag, I had my bag filled to the brim with giant candy bars. And I
yep,
was selling those on campus for, $2 a pop. And, I was the only one with all the good candy. So I made like $1,500 in my first month of selling all those
that was a
things.
great racket, man. That is a great racket.
It
And
was
if you think about it, I was doing sales for a guy my freshman year. I was always diversified, but I never made a commission. I was thinking about it now. He would sell Airheads for 25 cents, like the strip candy of Airheads. And I was his top sales guy. I never made a commission. I'm like, what were you thinking, Cease? But man, I was the guy. People would come
right.
to me. They knew I knew how to get it, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I
same kind of thing.
my first government shutdown at 13 because I was told by
Yeah.
the school board that at 13 I was not allowed to sell on campus without a business license, and I also couldn't have a business license until I was 18. So I had to stop my operation, which was unfortunate. But so, it was my first government shutdown at 13 years old. And my biggest lesson from that was the profit. I didn't know what profit was or margin or any of those things. So I had to like
No, I
go
didn't either. No way.
I remember my first thing I did was I spent the $50 and got all the candy, and then I sold all that candy, and now I had $100. And so I owed my dad the $55 back because it was a simple interest loan kind of thing. So I owed him $55 from that, and then I had to go back to the store and buy more candy so I could continue the business. And so and then I had my inventory back, and I had $0. I was like, I don't understand what just happened. I have nothing. So I had to start reading some books that I convinced my parents to take me to Barnes& and Noble and stick me in the business section so I could read some more on because this was pre-internet.
So the only one that really made money in that racket was your dad. Smart man.
Yeah, he made his
Bank.
time back on there, and my next go around, I didn't have the loan to pay, so I did make money, the second time around. But anyways, I learned about inventory costs and margin and profit at a very young and help bug, right? So same kind of thing. You were saying earning 200 or $300 a night to do the DJ stuff. I was like, I made $1,500 over the course of 6 weeks as a 13-year-old. That's nuts.
And then you go, hey, kid, make $4.25 sitting on a lifeguard stand with undiagnosed ADHD. It just wasn't a good mix. Like for me, it wasn't a good job.
Yeah, and it's fun. My son's doing the same kind of thing now. He's 14 and he spins fire like professionally, similar to the
What does
DJ
that
stuff.
mean?
He literally takes balls of fire on the end of chains and spins them around his body like a badass. And it does that to music and whatnot. And this last summer, he got for 4 or 5 performances at weddings and block parties and whatnot. He made 200 or $300 a pop on each one of them
Wow.
for what amounts to a half hour worth of work for him. And I was like, there's not a lot of 14-year-olds that make $600 an hour. So you get the bug early.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have had a wild ride over your entire business career, which is it's been in all sorts of places from books to coaching to ministry. And man, there's just so many things in the DJ business. And my question for you is, have you ever had, other than your lifeguard job, have you ever had a regular job?
Yeah, I mean, if you can call pastoring a regular job, it's funny because people think that pastoring is you work on Sundays and that's about it. As far as jobs go, I've had ministry related jobs, but it's really more of a calling. So, like corporate 9 to 5 job, I've not held many jobs like that very long. I've had on site consulting gigs that are fractional that I've had for a couple of years. I have clients, but no, really managing my interests and my businesses and showing up doing what I do. No, man, I'm great at what I do and I'm a horrible employee.
Exactly, because I'm in the same boat. I've had a couple of jobs over the course of, 40 years or so, but they've all been short-lived, and they're either because they were, fractional type stuff where I'm showing up and just being a part of what's going on for a little while to pick up a skill or do something, or because I was trying out this whole job thing and realizing that I was not good as an employee. To this day, still, I'm a terrible employee. I am much better as an entrepreneur than I am as an employee, which I don't think is common. I think it's more common, especially, we've done 250 of these episodes. It's a lot more common to go from the job world into starting a business at some point. So to run into a few of those weirdos like you and me who are basically unemployable.
I mean, I told people, like, someone asked me, like, hey, what would it take for you to come run this company? I said, $4 million. Like, is that what you're making right now? I said, no. I said, it's a random number. And if the companies are like, yeah, we can do that. And then I have a whole other list of qualifications because I do think I'm employable in the sense of like, if it's not just money, just to make money out, you and I have figured out how to make money. Right. And really, for me, money isn't the goal. Really, the goal for me is freedom. And it's the ability to be able to be there for my family at strategic points. It's the ability to say yes to ministry as much as possible. It's the ability to help out friends when they need some help. The money is really the fuel that runs that. So it's not even that. There has to be compelling vision. I have to be leaning into my unique ability to where the job makes sense. I need to have flexibility. I think most human beings are pretty amazing what they do about 9 months out of the year, maybe 10 months if they're really high achievers. And there's about 2 months of drag time that either we can fight against or we can lean into. And I'm structuring my life that I can lean into the fact that there's certain months out of the year that I'm just not as productive. And so my clients need consistency, right? So I've got to build systems and structures and put people in place that are consistent. But me having to be the only show in town, and I think as an employee, employees are paid less than a consultant is paid because it's a longer term type investment, but I do better as a catalytic type presence to come in and solve a problem. Or if someone's in a long period of growth, if they're scaling up and like their peers aren't really able to comprehend. I mean, I've coached executives at multi-billion-dollar companies and I've coached startup founders at under 6 figures of starting up. People are people, but the unique thing in between each of them is their current community or relational dynamics, whether at work or at home or both, are not where they need them to be to help push them to that next level of growth. And so someone like me is able to come in, help them really focus on what's most important to get where they want to go and help them determine if what they say they want is actually what they really want.
Yeah.
Because we know the right answers to say, but our actions may not be lining up with that. And so we have to determine, is that really what we want? And that's just been so important for me as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I learned a number of years ago that probably I would have gotten there faster had I a coach who told me those and forced me to ask those questions. But I thought for the longest time that what I wanted to make $1 million a year in revenue. And that was like a target that I was going to hit. And then I realized along the way to hitting that revenue that I didn't care so much about revenue. I didn't care about the money. There was other things that I cared about a lot more. And it's almost an embarrassingly low number, right? Like $60,000 a year. And I was like, oh, I could do all the things I want with that and travel with my family and do the things that I want to do and spend time with them. And I was like, so I no longer care about the money. I have to care about something else in order to continue growing. I had to really figure out.
Yeah, because most small businesses from about 600,000 to 1.2 million is usually purgatory. I remember I was coaching one guy. He had grown a business from start to about 8 million and capped out at 8 million. He said he was making more money, taking on more money under $2 million of revenue than he was at $8 million of revenue. And so he had this big business and he was able to sell it and all that, but it was way more stress, way more work because, and I heard a guy say this before, even in church world, you can either have growth or you can have control. You can't really have both. And there comes a certain point in a business that you have to relinquish control, even if you're a highly gifted person, in order to sustain the growth. Otherwise, that's an indicator that I am unwilling to give up control and to have this kind of liability. I need to exit. That's one of the ways that I help clients realize it's time for them to sell their business. If it's profitable, making money, but hitting that lid and they're unwilling to operate differently, then they either need to scale back and keep it where they want to keep it or get out of the way because revenue is proving demand. There's demand for your service, right? And it is indicating that you're doing a decent job of fulfilling it. But if your profitability is down, I mean, one of the companies I started over the course of many years made several $1,000,000, but it's still net negative. It should actually break even and grow profitable after this next year. But even though it was impressive growth trajectory, the profitability wasn't amazing until recently. And so there's a lot of things where, yeah, I used to think $1,000,000 of revenue, but as Biggie Smalls said, mo money, mo problems. A million in revenue without proper profitability, or I know a lot of people who make over 1,000,000 in revenue, decent profit, and don't really know their kids. So you have to really determine what's important in life and at the stage of life we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I want to actually dive into your superpowers because I think that's a good way into what you are actually really good at. So we talk on this show, every iconic hero has a superpower, whether that's a fancy flying suit made by your genius intellect or the ability to call down thunder from the sky. In the real world, heroes have what I call a zone of genius, which is either a skill or a set of skills that you were born with or you developed over the course of your career that really energize all your other skills. Right? And the superpower is what sets you apart and allows you to help your people slay their villains and come on top of their own journeys. So the way I like to frame it for my guests is if you look at all the skills that you've developed over the course of your life, there's probably a common thread that ties all those skills together. That's where we'd find your superpower. And I know you mentioned coaching a little bit, but with that framing, what do you think your actual superpower is in your business?
Yeah, I think being able to identify what people really want and then determining if we're able to get them there and then helping them to do that. And so some churchy word is discernment. It's not just a church word, but that's one you hear thrown around. Being able to really understand and find a solution. I'm able to creatively problem solve. I think one of the ways that my brain's wired different is to put solutions together from different places and form them together into a new solution. That's helpful. I'm able to really draw out from a lot of people what it is that they want and help them form a plan to get there. In a very short, trite way of saying it, I like to help winners win more. From the time I was very little, I didn't have to be the winner doing it, right? I wanted to be a part of the winning team. I had more fun winning T-ball championship than I did winning something solo as a junior high kid. Like it was more fun to win collectively with a group for me. And so I like winning collectively. I like when people are winning. I like when business deals is a mutual win all the way around, right? Where I'm being compensated and they're getting the value or vice versa. I'm receiving the value and they're being rightly compensated. That's why I love your company, Push Button Podcasts, is because I feel like I'm at least receiving the value of the investment, but I feel like I'm receiving much more. And the ongoing benefits I can see from your company helping my business grow has been immense value in the short amount of time we've been doing it so far. That's why it's easy for me to share it with other people because there's a great value match of there's high value. You're over delivering on the current investment you're requiring. And I think that you and I have shared that desire to under promise, over deliver and to really go out of our way for people along the way. So I think helping people has always been something since I was young and it took me a long time to not feel bad about making money along the way as I help people, but it's okay to receive compensation for the value that you're providing. And so I would say for me, it's really walking alongside people, being discerning about where they want to go, calling out what's deep within them. There's a proverb I love, Proverbs 20, verse 5. It says, the ways of a man's heart is like deep water, and a man of understanding would draw it out. And that's one of the things I try to lean into and really understanding how to help people along the way.
Yeah, I really like the ability to discern for someone else what it is that they really want because it's a thing that I have learned how to do that for myself, but I've realized that it's not a thing that a lot of people know how to do for themselves. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I could figure that out for myself. But the ability to come alongside someone and help them actually figure out what they really want to do with their lives, it's a magical thing. And I know because I've seen it in my life. And when you probably know this more than a lot of people because we talk every Thursday on our mastermind meetings. But like, I know what I need is like, I need to have a particular like experiential goal that I'm working towards in my business that's not related to the business most of the time. Right. And so at the moment, like, you know, this, I'm trying to buy a sailing yacht so we can travel port to port around the world with our kids and that kind of thing. I'm like, that is a thing that I can put dollar amount on and then I can backtrack into here's what I need to do with my business to hit those goals. And before that, it was traveling in the RV. And before that, it was other things. And so like I've always had, well, not always, as I've learned to do this about myself, is figure out what do I need in order to get what I want.
Yeah.
And that's something that took me years to figure out. I mean, if I had been able to do that in my 20s instead of in my 30s, I'd probably be a lot further along now than I was.
No, and I think that's a key component, Richard, of what we're talking about today is identifying what it is that we want. And it's okay to function on what you think you want for a while. But eventually, what will happen is there's going to be a disconnect in what you think or say you want and your actions. Ultimately, if people say, I want a great relationship with my kids, and then they either one don't know how to get there, or they're saying that because they're supposed to say that, or there's other things, but having someone slow down with them and say, talk to me more about that. What would that look like? Is that what they want and need? Just helping them think. And same thing with business. I need to stop doing that. Do you really, or do you need to stop doing other things to free you up to be able to do those specific things? It's just an important key of really helping people navigate and have some permission to ask the harder questions.
Yeah, and I know I run into a lot of that. In my life, the kids one was really important. When my first son was born, I said he's 14 now. I remember telling my wife, and I was like, that was my first experiential goal. My first experience with having an experiential goal was when I had my son, and my it suddenly shifted from I'm trying to earn money to I need to have my business allow me to have lunch with my kids every day. And I have for the last 14 years. And my son recognizes that now. He looks back and his other friends and his other friends' parents went on. He's like, we have a different relationship than a lot of my friends do with their dads because you're here every day. And so like, which is something I wanted. That was my first sort of realization that having an experiential goal for my business really helped me grow and get what I wanted. And yeah. And then like even more recently, this is something that you coached me on was I was doing a lot of sales in my business and realizing that I was like, oh, I have to do sales. And you're like, but do you really? And I was like, well, I think I do, but no,
Your business needs sales. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs you to do the sales.
yeah. And since making changes there, our business is already growing because of that, which is a useful thing. So having a coach who has that ability to walk you through what do you really want and what do you really need to be focusing your time on is, I think, really unique and very powerful.
Well, I'm called blunt, but people know that I care, right? So even if they take a moment to pay attention to how much I actually care about them, and if I'm less blunt with someone, and I'm blunt in the way that their personality is receptive to as well. I've done disc assessment training. I've been certified in the Enneagram, done the 5 voices, all the different personality things, understanding how people are wired. Certain personality types respond better to different types of accountability. Accountability for some people are cuss words. I've got some strong forebrewing on the Enneagram on the romantic/rebel side. And so if you come directly at me first without relating with me, then I'm gonna have a harder time. If you come alongside of me or say, hey man, I know you can do it, go do it. I remember one time when I learned to ride my bike by myself, my dad was teaching me for a long time. I was cautious and everything else. And I went inside and I was like, Dad, you kept saying you're gonna come. He's like, hey, keep going. He's like, hey, Casey, you know how to ride your bike. You can go ride it. And so I was like, darn right I can. I went out there and then got on my bike and started riding. And the rest, as they say, is history. But it's just that you can do this. Go do it. Just encouraging me, empowering me. And so when you find a coach, for me, I'm not getting paid to tell you everything you want to hear. I'm being compensated to draw out what you need along the way. And here's the deal is when you're going after what you need to do, as long as it's to help you get what you want, people are willing to be stretched. If you're telling them you need to go lose 20 pounds because you're fat, certain personality types are like, you're right. I'm going to go lose 20 pounds. But for me, it's like, hey, if you want to walk your daughters down the aisle and if you want to dance with them at their wedding, you want to dance with your granddaughter at her wedding, you need to get healthier. Okay, for me, it's relational. So that's one of the ways that you get contact. And so being able, and I'm not fit for bad. I recently did I always offer 2 hours of complimentary coaching for people who are upwardly mobile that are willing to invest 5, 6 figures in coaching. I always do a couple complimentary coaching calls through warm referrals. And I met with someone and it was just clear that we weren't going to be a fit for each other. Not that they were a bad person or anything else, but my skill set wasn't going to be most advantageous for where that person was at the time. And so being able to understand, like, I'm okay not being everybody's guy. I'm not going to be, but the people that resonate with what I'm saying and can appreciate my style and that I feel like I can help because I want to operate with integrity, I'm not going to say, oh, I can help you and I can't help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to switch gears then and talk a little bit about the other side of the superpower coin, which of course is the fatal flaw, right? Just like every Superman has his kryptonite or Wonder Woman can't remove her bracelets of victory without going mad. You probably had a flaw that held you back in your business, something you've struggled with. Maybe
Absolutely.
it was perfectionism for a long time, right? It kept me from shipping product. And because I could always tweak it a little bit more because I'm a systems guy. And I always want to make it better and more perfect. And then I never ship anything. And then you don't have a business then. Or one of the other ones I struggled with for a long time was a lack of self-care, which really brought itself out in not having a good relationship with time. So I'd spend way too much time working and not enough time with actually like the people that I cared about, or not having good boundaries with clients, right? And letting them walk all over me and things like that. So I've learned to fix a lot of those. But what I want to know, I think, is more important than what the flaw is how have you worked to overcome it so you can continue to grow in your various areas?
Yeah. People always say people pleasing like they're some saint or something else. It's completely selfish, right? People pleasing is like, I need you to like me or accept me or whatever. After my crash, as I shared with my learning challenges and just being wired a little differently, I always felt a little outside. I would weasel my way in. But after my crash, I always felt like I needed to prove I'm not a horrible person. I did a horrible thing, but I'm not a horrible person. We can go into theology and everything. But overall, there's two kind of things that happen. One, people pleasing is usually say yes to too many things. You don't say no enough. You end up devaluing greatly what you do and overvaluing the other person's experience. You hold on to staff too long when you should probably cut them loose. You should cut leaders loose or whatever. I would hold on too long there. In our soul care training, I've been through Crosspoint Ministry, Soul Care Institute, and there's a beautiful thing they talk about in relational dynamics that some people are detached, other people are overly enmeshed, and then there's a healthy way of relating somewhere in the middle. I lean towards enmeshment where I get too empathetic or I care too much where it starts affecting me. If I'm not okay with a work person or a client, that it throws off it can disorient everything. And so over the years, I've had to work with that. And being a pastor, that was the worst because like the number one way I knew a lady's family was about to leave my church, she stopped liking my posts on social media. It's a funny correlation. Funny little thing is like you have those people that are posting all the time. They're either fasting from the internet or they're upset with you somehow. Maybe not, but that's where my brain would go when it's like, then I'm not looking at social media for social media. I'm looking at there for constant approval. And so over the years, the first thing I had to do is acknowledge it. It's embarrassing. And I'm sharing it here for the millions of people that listen to your podcast right now to hear, but the enmeshment and people pleasing was a big deal. And it's cost me to work for way less than I'm worth. It makes me feel bad if I charge what I'm worth and the other person's struggling somehow. It makes me stay in work relationships longer than I ought to. It's made me hold work relationships longer than I ought to. The way I work through that now, though, is ultimately trying to take an objective position of what is best longer term. Because as much as I'm a big picture thinker and a macro thinker by and large, when I'm stressed or overwhelmed, I narrow in on the micro.
Yeah.
And so I think if I let this guy go who may not be a great fit, his whole family's going to fall apart and it's on me. Oh, isn't that so kind of you for being concerned? What I'm really saying is I don't want that responsibility or pain. Because what if that's true? I don't want that for them, but I don't want that for me either. And so the way I've overpowered that is I'm not their provider or protector ultimately. I have responsibility, and my responsibility is ultimately to God and to my family. And so I've got to really reorient my priorities, not what I am supposed to say, but what I actually believe and start leading into that. So one of the ways that I've overcome that is rightly reappropriating who's going to be around my deathbed. And so I have a deathbed question. Will they likely be at the side of my deathbed? If the answer is no, then I've got to consider those who will be my wife, my daughters, Lord willing, and some other close friends. Right. And so prioritizing, not all relationships are equal. Right. It's okay to have business relationships because for me, as an enmeshed person, as great as I am at understanding and drawing in, empathizing with people, making them feel seen and heard, I can also overinvest in that way at the detriment of, it leads into self-care. It leads into obsessive thinking. It leads into degrading and eating too much or sleeping too much or whatever. Like all those things can come from it. And when I have healthy perspective of relationships and surround myself with other healthy people and receive coaching when I'm off, it really has helped me become even better to be fully present where I can go into a tense coaching environment or consulting environment and still do what would serve those people best, even if it's not short term, they're going to like it the most. So that's some of the ways I'm working to overcome. And it's still a challenge, but at 45, as I've experienced more wins and have learned from my losses and view loss differently, when I have some L's, it has helped me to mature in that area. It's still an area I need growth in, but the more I'm able to speak about it, own it, and realize that I serve people better by not needing as much of their approval.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, especially the long-term view of things. It's something that we started coaching our littlest ones on. I got 4 kids. 3 of them are daughters. The younger 2 are 5 and 7 right now. And one of the things you've had young girls, they fight a lot about the things that pits them up. And one of the things that I've been coaching them on, because it's the same kind of thing I've had to learn in my own life. Is this going to matter to you 5 years from now? If it's not going to matter 5 years from now, we can probably not be nearly as upset about it and not be as invested in the outcome. And so it's a simple sort of coaching question for the little ones because it's easy for them to understand. But it's a powerful sort of question to ask yourself when you're looking at things is like, hey, does this actually matter 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Does it matter all the way down to my deathbed? And that's one of the skills that I know I've learned over the course of running a business and building a family and doing all the things that we've been talking about is, man, whenever you're struggling, zoom out.
100%. Because when I was planting a church, man, people would leave. Like, I thought they were in for life. And we weren't like a prison gang, blood in, blood out or anything. But it was one of those things like, hey, we took seriously what we're doing. And then they would just leave. And like, it was funny because the first few years, like 3 or 4 days, I was just, I was messed up. And then it became a day. And then it became 3 hours. And it became 30 minutes. And if I had messed up some way, I'd want to try to make that right relationally. But overall, it still wasn't fun and it still hurt, but it was able to rightly appropriate the amount of emotional energy and use that as a gift to assess everything. Doesn't mean every time that would happen. I still remember there are people who left the church I would weep over. But as I matured in my ability to rightly appropriate the emotional energy given to something, the better I was able to then love and lead those well that were still entrusted in my care. Same with business, right? Finances are important in business, but finances aren't the only thing that matter in business. And for every business I've been a part of, whether I've owned or have coached or consulted, every business I've been a part of has had hard seasons financially. It's how they continue to persevere and add value. And really, those who take a posture of generosity when things are tough are the ones that strive so much better when things improve.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the concept of when something doesn't go well, someone leaves the church, a key person leaves your company, something happens, struggle that you're looking at, okay, this is now an opportunity to look at how do we make it better. And I know like I had a situation like that a couple of years back where one of my key men had to leave and he didn't leave for any negative reason. He left because he was given an opportunity, a good opportunity that would have been foolish for him to say no to. And he left under positive terms for that. But with my blessing, please go and take that opportunity. But my business now is down a key person. So I have to
Yeah.
look at the opportunity and be like, what, as not as a struggle, but an opportunity to be like, okay, how do we make it so that our operations are less person driven and are more systems driven and you can plug people into and out of them? It was an opportunity to help improve the business operation. And it's a blessing in disguise kind of thing. And I realized there's a lot of things anytime something goes poorly, those are good opportunities to figure out and work on things in your business. And like just to bring that down home for everyone of the things that like we talked earlier about COVID. And there's an opportunity for a lot of business to realize, hey, we're behind the eight ball on digital marketing. And I know one of the things that like we did with our company, because at the time it was like, you can't do a lot in your business. You couldn't go outside, couldn't do things. It's a good time to work on systems and processes and operations and those kind of things and make those things better. So when the doors do get opened again, you have a stronger business. And so we did a lot of coaching on that with clients, helped them grow during that when they could come back, when the doors open again, right? Everything can be an opportunity for improvement, even the negative stuff.
Well, it's amazing. I have a client and she's actually my CPA as well, but she's a CPA. And I remember on Facebook, I mean, that's how I started switching over to her. She's like, look, your franchise tax returns are due. I'm doing it for free for any bit. Or I'll file a complimentary extension for anybody who wants. Just send me over your name, email, and your business information. You message her on Facebook. She got your information. Well, guess how many people became clients from her generosity? She wasn't even doing a hard sell, but it was just like, I'll help you out. I know many people are struggling trying to figure things out. I'll file your extension. And it may or may not have been a marketing ploy. I think she was genuinely just trying to help, but she now has a massive accounting firm, bookkeeping firm that's helped a lot of small businesses and has done very well for her. It's just that idea of things are falling apart for everyone around us. So how can we help? Really, how do we pitch in? And it's not just out of greed. It's out of, I understand the importance of investing when things are hard. I understand of showing up for people when not everybody's willing to show up for them. As the long-term return on investment for the right people, there's high benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about your common enemy. This will be a little more complicated because you're in a lot of different businesses. So we'll see how this fits. But every superhero has an arch nemesis, and it's a thing that they constantly have to fight against in their world. And in the world of business, it takes a lot of forms. But generally speaking, we try to put this in the context of your clients. So perhaps clients in your coaching business, or maybe clients in your publishing business, it's a mindset or a flaw that they are coming to you with that you have to fight against so that you can actually get them the result that they came to you for in the first place. Right. And so,
Yeah, price versus value customers all day long, right? Because money's important, but if people don't have a concept of how to value it, they just completely diminish a person. When you say, how many hours does it actually take for you to blank? over 18 years of experience, it now takes us this many hours. So it's that value versus price. That just for me is like a kryptonite. If we're talking superhero stuff and super cheap people, I don't mind frugal people that are still willing to invest if they can see the value. So don't hear me saying frugal people or even people who would call themselves. I know plenty of cheap people that have invested a lot of money with me because they see the value of it and they find the price compared to value is fair. They'll do that. You can be a multimillionaire and still be, I mean, I know multimillionaires that are cheap, right? That they don't want to spend a ton of money on something. That's not what, don't hear me there. It's incumbent upon the businesses to convey value and to deliver value. What I don't like is when people cheapen it because they live in an hourly system, right? My time's worth over $1,000 an hour. If you want to break it down in an hour. But really, when you get to a point of leadership, you're focused on outcome and not just the effort or process to get there. What can we deliver? I was meeting with a mutual friend of ours, Ian, today, and just on his ad buying, he works solely based on performance-based commission, right? Because he puts in a ton of hours or a little bit of hours. The results for his clients are massive, right? And so the potential for them to earn the profitability, everything else is so massive that for him, he works out his formula. And I'm the same way. If someone came to run ads for me and bring me leads and they will do it in 15 minutes a month, I'd still pay them plenty of money because the outcome is beneficial. So I think for me, that's the deal. And people who are ignorant about it, like they're just not aware, haven't thought the way, I'm glad to have a conversation. But people who are just highly value themselves and their money and their time, but devalue that of other people, even
Yeah.
talking about it's kind of making, I can't fly anymore, Richard.
It's a rough sort of conversation to have because the overwhelming majority of people in our world operate in a time for money like world. And one of my favorite stories about that is I don't remember if it was Ford or something, whatnot. One
Henry
of
Ford.
these manufacturers, yeah,
Henry Ford.
was like paid like $10,000 to fix the machine, and all he does is come and turn the screw. And he's like, "Yeah, you didn't pay me to turn the screw. You paid me to know which screw to turn."
That's
Right?
right.
It's an interesting thing, and we've talked a lot about like our push button podcast business. And the reason we can have the prices we do and deliver the way we do is because we've built really cool systems on the back end that allow us to do what we do in a quarter of the time of any of our competitors. It still produce a good quality output. And so, like, if it was a purely a time exchange, it wouldn't be a relevant discussion, essentially.
No, I mean, and that's where you have to think, and I help business owners all the time think that way, because when you first start, you have to think about price. You don't have much money, right? When you hire someone, you have to think hourly. But there comes a point where you have to delineate between leaders and managers. And I love how Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach teaches this way. Essentially, leaders are responsible for the outcomes. Managers are responsible for the effort to deliver the outcomes. And I'm personally a better leader than I am a manager because I can become a micromanager because it triggers my OCD. And then I'm like, how are we doing now? How are we doing now? Rather than here are the KPIs. I'm not going to get real curious unless the big picture KPIs that you agree to aren't being hit. Then we'll have layered discussions. And then I hire managers to manage the process because I've got to realize that myself is I can manage, but that is not my unique ability. Leadership is casting the vision and helping chart the course to get there. Then you bring in a manager that can help oversee, ensure that the course is there. And if the process that's been created isn't the best, they'll continue to refine for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I want to switch gears, talk about something that's more fun, right? So if your enemy is what you fight against, your driving force then is what you fight for, right? So just Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. I want to know what it is that you fight for in your various businesses, your mission, so to speak.
People become greater and make a great impact. So whether it's in coaching or marketing so if they have something great they're doing, I want to help bring out the best and then help deliver that to other people. That would be the quickest summary. My coaching, I help winners win more. It doesn't mean I don't compete with people who are in a slump in ministry, I serve all types of people. But
Yeah,
I also point to like Jesus in John 5, do you want to be well? I don't do well with people who are in a bad spot and aren't willing to think differently or do anything differently about being in a bad spot. I'll be kind to them, but I'm not going to invest a ton of time. But the people who are like, I've got something great, I want to put it into a book format. I'm not a writer, but I can talk about it. Great. We have a solution for you. Hey, my business is doing well. We want to expand upon the business. I need someone to help me think that. Great. I realize I'm a good leader, but I want to become a great leader. I need to move from management to leadership. How do I do that? I can help there. And I create businesses around that. And one thing I'm finding too is I'm doing a lot more joint ventures. I'm partnering with other people who are great in their lanes to do investing and using my skill set in a lane with other people, because as I get older and I've experienced some success, I like to experience success with other people. I like
yeah,
helping other people be successful. That's why I'm a great referral partner for
right.
people.
Right.
because like if it's great, I want to tell other people about it. It makes me feel awesome, even if I'm not compensated, because if it's a great process, it's a brilliant thing. It's worth sharing with other people.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of that. And I know like it just brings back to what you were talking about earlier about wanting to win as a team and the idea of just making it so that how do I make as many people win as possible? Like you want to be part of that rising tide, right? That raises all and just help the world become a better place. So I want to switch gears and move into the practical portion of our show. Just like every superhero has their tool belt with awesome gadgets, like their batarangs or the web slingers or laser eyes or their big magical hammer they can spin around and fly with. I want to talk about the top one or two tools you couldn't live without in your business. It could be anything from your notepad that you take your notes on, to your calendar that keeps your day going, your marketing tools that you use for your product delivery, anything that you think is essential to getting your job done. If you could narrow it down to one or two things that you couldn't live without to do what you do, especially running as many companies as you run, what would that be?
I mean, my team, if you need technology, I can give you technology, but really the team I have in place, I couldn't do it without them. I mean, that is my secret weapon and my ability to, I think, increasingly attract the right type of team members. And I read a book years ago called WHO with a question mark. And it talked about A players, B players. So like the top grading philosophy, the guy wrote about that as well. But A players are typically aren't just motivated by money, right? They're motivated by vision and mission. They're motivated by being around other A players. They're motivated by being encouraged to go win and to have some liberty in what they're doing. And I love curating and working with A players. I'm not threatened by people who are better than me on things. So really my team, as far as tools go, I'm a minority investor in Magi, which I think is an ethically mindful way of engaging with AI and leveraging AI increasingly more and more in what I do, not to replace skills in copyright or anything else, but to help refine, streamline, and even just to have an outsourced assistant to work that with has been very important to me. And I invested in the person that created Magi. It was going to be something else when I invested. And so Magi was a glorious outshoot of some failure we were experiencing, but that's been a huge blessing for my team and I. And then I love Slack. We use Slack for communication. So I have my teams all over the US and I have people overseas. I have an ad buyer that's in the Amsterdam area or Netherlands. And so Slack and then the tools that go off of that have been helpful.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the team as well. This is something if you talked to me 5 years ago, I'd have been like, it wouldn't have even been on my radar. And now we've got 18 people working for us, which is insane
It
to
can be
me.
the kryptonite if you have a bad team and if I was managing the day to day, I would not like team, right? I don't want to be managed and I don't want to manage. I want to be helped and I want to be of help. So there's a fine line. You have to know yourself. And so I would take pay cuts to be able to hire the right people or make no money to free up my time because of the vision I want to go. And my businesses are getting closer and closer to my vision in the sense of like bringing someone in and handing them off and then my hands are off and something great happens and I can be a part of it where I'm helpful. But I think I'm just genuinely at the core pretty lazy. I'm just very busy about being able to afford to be lazy. People are like, man, you work so hard, you do so much stuff. And I said, I think it's motivated by being able to do what I want to do with who I want to do, when I want to do it, being able to say yes to the right things, no to the right thing, the
Yeah.
ability to mess up a little bit and not throw off my entire family.
You've probably noticed all of our email addresses at our company are at Five Freedoms.
Yeah.
And Five Freedoms for me, and I tell all my staff this, it's part of our core values and everything, is that everything we work towards is part of these Five Freedoms. And the Five Freedoms are political freedom, which means your government doesn't tell you what to do. And then there's the one that we're familiar with, financial freedom. That means your bank account doesn't tell you what you can or can't do. Time freedom means your clock doesn't tell you what you can and can't do. And then location freedom means you get to decide where you're going to do what you want to do. And health freedom, which means your body doesn't tell you what you can or can't do. And then you and I probably share a sixth freedom, which is spiritual freedom. And so anyways, talking through those, that like all of the things in my business is all about how do I get more of the freedom in all of these categories and not less. And so like we're always building towards increasing the amount of freedom that we have. And it's really like I work hard, but I also work hard because same reason I'm lazy, right? I want to have the ability to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, who I want to do it with, where I want to do it. And so I will work really hard to hire the right people and build the right systems so that I can sleep until 11 o'clock every day if I want to.
Okay.
So I feel you on that.
Speaking of heroic tools, I want to take a few minutes to tell you about a tool we built that powers the Hero Show and is now this show's primary sponsor. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us, and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. And now, back to the Hero Show.
So I've got one more question for you here because we're rounding out the top of the hour, and that's your guiding principle, right? One of the things that makes heroes heroic is that they live by a code. For instance, Batman never kills his enemies. He only ever brings them to Arkham Asylum. So as we wrap up the interview, I want to talk about the top 1 or 2 principles that you use regularly in your life. Maybe a principle that you wish you had known when you first started out on your entrepreneur's journey all the way back as a DJ in middle school.
Yeah, I mean, secondary to the faith premise from what is it, the Westminster Shorter Catechism, but the chief end of man is to love God, and chief end of man is to glorify God and know Him forever, to know God and love Him and to serve Him and to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. John Piper would say, glorify God by enjoying Him forever. The lens by which I see it is like, hey, I want to live as a thank you for the grace I've received. The second principle is really the golden rule, right? Do for others as you'd have them do for you. And the last thing I'd ever want anyone else to do is to work a job that they were miserable in, or to do work that wasn't meaningful work for them. And so really the way I work is to lean into meaningful work, to find things that are life-giving and things that are productive and helpful. And I want that for other people, right? And that's increasingly becoming more of an earnest desire of helping people lean into which is going to be most life-giving, because I think in turn that honors our creator. It leans more and more to why we were created and why we've been redeemed. And so for me, that's the guiding principle of I like to do for others as you have them do for you. Does that mean they're going to do them for me? No. I've had people I should sue the pants off of for things they've done. And there are days, my father's an attorney, he's really good at it, and he can file a lot of papers, but I remember how bad it felt having to go through litigation at 17 after my crash. And so I think of the guiding principle of scripture. I'm not saying that lawsuits are wrong always or whatever, but there are times where it's like for freedom, like I've made bad decisions and I could have faced much worse. And because I didn't, I'm willing to do for others as I've had done for me, or I wish I had done for me along the way. Because am I perfect at that? No. But when I violate that, I try to be quicker and quicker to come and say, I'm sorry, and to fix it and make it right when possible. And for me, on that end of being mindful for others and keeping an eternal perspective that our time here is short. It's but a vapor. And so to make the most out of the time we're given here and go back to those who are surrounding my deathbed is making sure I'm keeping in priority the relationships that are most important and doing things the best I can and realigning around that. And so I don't feel scattered in all that I'm doing. I feel like I'm expressing my gifts in different directions and in different dimensional ways, but it's all rooted in the idea of doing things, making things better. And then I'm okay firing myself and getting out. I fired myself so many times because if you're your own boss, no one else is going to fire you. Your clients might fire you, but I fire myself all the time because I want better for my clients. I want better for my team members to have someone that's even better than I am at something. And so that's one of the consequences of doing for others I would have them do for me.
Yeah, I'm working on doing that a lot right now. Like trying to get myself out of more and more things that are not my superpowers. And what's funny is like just a couple of weeks ago, I got to spend an extended period of time doing the things that I'm really good at in my business because my family left for the weekend. So I was on my own for like 3 days. So I just was like, I don't have anything else to do. So I might as well just lean into my own superpowers and work on a bunch of things that were like in my realm. And as an entrepreneur, I'm generally wearing all the different hats. When they get back from the weekend and my staff is all like, how do we make that happen more? Because they're like, when I'm at my highest and best use doing those things, the benefits are really good for the company. And when I'm doing, they're not my highest and best use, things like sales, things like HR, or things like payroll, any of that stuff, it's not my highest and best use. And that's where like I'm starting to realize I need to do everything in my power to fire myself from everything except that which is my highest and best.
That's absolutely it, man. I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to wrap our interview then. But I do finish every interview with a simple challenge that I call the Heroes Challenge. And we do this to help get access to new stories that we might not otherwise find on our own, because not everyone is out there doing the podcast rounds like you and I might do. So the question is simple. Do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story with us here on The Hero Show?
Yeah, if you haven't had Dustin Stout come and share about the journey towards Magi, I absolutely would bring Dustin on. He's had other wins. This has not been an easy road, and so I just admire him so much. His integrity, his faithfulness, his authenticity. I've just been super impressed with what he's creating in Magi, his desire to make it ethical and have integrity with it, but also accessible. His resolve to continue and to improve. I mean, I would have quit so many times if I were in his shoes, and just to watch him persevere and get going has been great. So if you haven't had Dustin on yet, I'd highly recommend bringing him
I've
on.
not had Dustin, and I know we're having a little bit of a Dustin pitch fest here today, but man, Magi is a great piece of software, and our team uses it regularly. And I've had the opportunity to chat with Dustin a number of times through the beginning of his launch because we are one of his larger clients, like individually. I know he's got several other big organizations as well, but we're one of the ones that he reaches out to for feedback because we have so many people in our account using it regularly. And so we have had a chance to talk to him a lot. Man, it's a great company. They're building a great product, and we have not had him on the podcast. So we'll see if we can get an
Bring him
introduction
on.
and bring him
Yeah,
on. Good
yeah,
software.
you'll have a great conversation. He's a great guy, but just for your listeners, I know that they will be super encouraged just hearing his story because he's a normal guy with an idea, and his original idea was great, but the market was not accepting it. And then he had courage and he pivoted, and he's done a great job. He's continued to grow. And so this isn't meant to be a pitch fest. It's just, I'm thrilled with your company. If we're talking about your company, I'd say interview Richard because Richard's doing a great job. So yeah, I would highly recommend. I know he would love to be on here and would be a great interview.
So in comic books, there's always the crowd of people at the end who are cheering and clapping for the acts of heroism. So our analogous to that here on this show, as we close, is where can people find you if they want your help in the future? Where can they light up the bat signal and say, hey, Casey, I need your help. Can you come in and help me? Whether that's with your books or your coaching or
Yeah.
your marketing stuff. And I think more importantly than who are the right types of people to actually reach out and ask for your help?
Yeah. So if you're a leader, a business owner looking to scale and grow, and you're considering writing and publishing a book, if you have a service business or a unique niche in what you're doing, we've helped a lot of people, financial planners, medical folks. We've helped accountants. We've helped attorneys. We've helped consultants and coaches. I'd love to help you. KCCease.com is where you can find me there. And lucidbooks.com is my publishing company, Planify Agency. And then the KCC show is a podcast, but I'm all over the socials at KCC, on LinkedIn, Facebook, all that. Love connecting. I'm on X. I'm not great at X. My podcast folks are doing a great job of posting some shorts for me there, but not very active on there. But yeah, I mean, people are looking to grow, people who are willing to invest in themselves. At the end of the day, investing with someone like me is an investment in yourself. And so I'll help guide you, but I will be very clear that you're responsible for your own success and who you put in your path to do that. So whether it's publishing a book, whether it's scaling your marketing agent, yeah, you needing a marketing agency. We don't work with a ton of people. We work really in a boutique setting where we find some custom solutions and help people actually scale their business. Usually they come and bring us in with marketing and then sales consulting and then operations as we scale their business for them, help them grow. I work with pre-seed round startups to people who are post-A round, working on a B round. And as far as coaching goes, anybody who's winning and wants to win more and value investing in themselves. And if we discover I'm a good fit, you're a good fit, we'll get after it 6 months, a year. I've had clients with me over 4 years. So yeah, that helps. But just along the way, I try to bring interesting people around and help leave the world a little bit better place than when I found it. So I would love to meet anybody listening.
For those people that are listening, I've only known Casey for 3-4 months now since he started coming to our mastermind. And it's been a pleasure having you a part of the mastermind. And it's already like just the conversations that you and I have had on our weekly mastermind meetings have had a tremendous impact on our business structure and the business growth and the decisions that I'm making. He has the skills to back up what he's saying. I guess my point there, and I've seen it firsthand in my business. And so if you are in a business thing and you want to grow and need another mind to come in and talk to, help you make decisions, Casey is definitely a guy I would take the time to reach out to. So Casey, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us here on the Hero Show. Really appreciate it. Do you have any final words of wisdom before I hit this stop record button?
Yeah. If you're thinking about getting a podcast, you need to go with Push Button Podcast immediately. That was the best decision I've made in being able to capture great content, engage with people I like engaging with, and to automate my life in that way. I am consistently inconsistent, but now I have consistent content going out thanks to Richard and his team. You didn't ask me to say that. I'm thrilled. I'm sharing that with everybody I can come in contact to. So Richard didn't bring me on there to say that, but I'm telling you as a more than satisfied customer and advocate for the brand, yeah, stop thinking about it. Reach out today.
Well, I appreciate that, Casey. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Hero Show, where we work to shift the cultural narrative around entrepreneurship and celebrate the heropreneurs who make our world a better place. Don't forget to visit our website at theheroshow.tv, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. If you found value in our show, we'd truly appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or better yet, share it with a friend to help us spread the message of entrepreneurship as a force for good. Curious to learn more about the stories and insights of these incredible heropreneurs? Check out our in-depth interviews and resources on our website. Together, let's support and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs as they embark on their own heroic journeys. Join us again next week for another episode of The Hero Show, where we'll continue to explore the world of heropreneurs, their superpowers, and the positive impact they bring to our lives. Until then, stay heroic.